Allie with Potomac Beads, and in this Better Beader episode, we are going to go over how to wire wrap found object, whether it be some petrified wood that you found on a hike, or even some sea glass or a beautiful seashell with that long walk on the beach. You can learn how to do this nice craft, which is great for adults as well as kids. So if you have a found object, if not, go ahead out into nature and find one. We'll get ready to show you the simple ways to wire wrap and make this a usable object for jewelry making, keychain, or even a little fun bubble. So on my mat here, I have a couple of different things that I have found or that could be considered found objects. Again, this is a great time of year to make that New Year's resolution and to go and enjoy the outdoors and bring some of the outdoors and found objects, things that may be precious or may actually be somebody else's junk, and make it treasure and bring it back and create something wonderful out of it. I have a couple examples here to show you about different gauges of wire, some techniques, and basically what to recommend. One thing I would definitely recommend is if that you have a really large chunk, like this quartz here, which is actually a quartz aquamarine chunk. When you're working with it, look at the size of the piece and think how you're going to be using it. Are you going to use this as an actual bauble? Are you going to just wrap it, sit it somewhere? If not, don't be afraid for a found object to actually take a little hammer, and you can actually hammer down and make it into a smaller piece. That way it is more usable. Sometimes if you find a shell or a rock too, especially with a shell, you may want to apply an outer lacquer like permalac or something like that to actually hold it or create even a resin working with it. The bigger the found piece, also the heavier the found piece sometimes, depending on what it's made of, the bigger or thicker you're going to need the wire to be. I have 18 gauge wire sitting here, and this is just artistic wire, and it's going to be kind of the thicker side on the gauges of wire that I use to wrap objects. And now wire does come in different gauges and different sizes. You can watch the Better Beader on kind of the beading wire essentials for that, but about 18 gauge is what I would recommend for something that's a little bit bulkier or heavier. For most objects, like this piece of amethyst right here, as well as this piece of abalone, I'm going to use a smaller gauge. Now, I'm not going to go so small as like 30 gauge. That's going to be more like floral wire and get really, really thin. Keep this and use this if you want for some decorations in the design. But what I'm going to be using is some regular wire. And this here I have is some 18 gauge as well in a gold color. Or I have some 20 gauge. 20 gauge and 22 gauge wires are kind of my go-to wire. They're nice and you can manipulate them and really change them up with your pliers, but they're not so hard that they're going to hurt your hand as you're working with them. There's also a couple essential pliers that are great to have even if you're just doing this for the first time. You want a round nose pliers, a bent nose pliers, or a flat nose pliers. You can have a bend or non-bend, and then a wire cutters. Those are going to be the essential things to get started when you're doing this. I have a piece of wire here, and I'm going to move the other ones off the mat here. I'm going to be using the 20 gauge wire, and let's wrap to start the abalone. So I have two different examples here. One is very flat, and one is more rounded. When I'm thinking about what I want to use for the different pieces, it may also change the idea of the wire. Again, there is half round wire. We're going to be concentrating on keeping it easy and using some round 20 gauge wire to get us started. When I get started doing something like this, I like to have, again, a nice inexpensive wire like the Art Wire brand wire. I'm not going into sterling silver right away until I know exactly what I'm doing. Another thing you want to think about is how kind of scratched your actual found piece can get. So a harder stone, you're usually not going to be able to scratch as much. A softer stone, sometimes you can scratch it. The first thing I'm going to think about is what I want to use this for, and I'm going to think of both of these as pendants hanging down with the smaller side to the top, the bigger side to the bottom. I basically need to wrap the piece, and I'm going to start with the back of the piece. Now it's very obvious what the back of the piece is for the abalone because all that color and that nice sheen is to the front. I'm going to start with this piece of abalone. I'm going to start by taking the wire kind of to the back of the abalone. This is one of those things that it's a feel sort of thing. I like to use the inexpensive wire because as you're wrapping around the stone and you want to do one wrap and make sure that it intersects that wire along the back. So you can see you have just a little piece along the front there. You're basically caging in the piece. I'm going to make another wrap along the bottom, and the basically the shape of that found object is really going to dictate how you do this. Again, think kid in mind. Don't think about being so set on how you want to wrap it in the design. That will come with practice, and you can always take your found object, cut the wire off, and redo a different design. You can see I'm taking this wire now and kind of tucking it underneath, so I overlapped the back piece 2 times. I'm going to bring the wire to the front, towards the bottom, and have it cage in along the side here. I'll say wrap it around again one more time here at the top below that first wire and bring it up towards the top of the piece. One thing that I do need to make sure as I bring it to the top of the piece, you can see the back there, and then the top, is I want to make a bail so that I can hang this on a cord if I want. I'm going to use my round nose pliers for that, and I have the wire sitting right on top of the piece where I want it to hang. I have twisted that, and now this wire here that's to the front, if I bring it to the back, that bail is going to be able to kind of move all around the back. I don't want that. You need to think in your mind that you have to have wire towards the front and the back of the piece if you are not planning on using glue, because this is going to anchor it in. I did start out with about 10 inches of wire, and you can always do more or less. You can add more wire, but I'm going to bring that from the front of the piece, and even if you want to, you can sometimes tuck it under a wire that's already through the piece. Be careful again of scratching when you're doing that. And then I have that down towards the front of the piece. You can get creative as you come to the front of the piece, taking a bead and adding it onto your wire if you want to. There's just a little crystal round here. Now I can take it and have it wherever I want to on the piece. Take it and kind of round that wire out. You can take that off, you can put it on. On 20 gauge wire, you will be able to fit up to 8 OC beads too. And right here, I'm just going to take my round nose pliers and play and manipulate. The thing to stress in this Better Beader episode is that you have to give it a try. You don't want to think, again, don't draw your piece out right away and think, I have to get the wire exactly like this. Let the wire, just like the found natural or organic material, manipulate and kind of influence how you're using the piece. As I get towards the end, I can take my fingers and gently and softly kind of bend the wire wherever I need to. If I want my bail to be smaller, you can look at the angle that it's already starting to twist and do a simple twist in the other direction to do a nice bail. Because this is 20 gauge wire, this is not going anywhere now, and I have that nice wrapped piece of my abalone. I was able to really grip flat on either side of this abalone and wrap it. If I have something a little bit more rounded, same deal. I'm not going ahead and really measuring out the wire. I'm just going to give myself about 10 inches of wire because it's about the same size. And usually I like to do 10 times the length of the piece if I'm thinking very, very lateral. Same deal here. I'm just going to kind of take my time, wrap around the piece, and then think about the fact that this is going to slip off and on because it is more rounded. I need to figure out a couple connection points where the wire is going to intersect around and dictate kind of a front and a back of the piece. I try to make sure when the wire is rounded that any turns that I do look nice from both directions and from both angles. I'll continue to wrap, and you can see I'm doing a completely different design here than the other one. Just kind of bringing it back towards the front. And now here at the front, because of the way that the piece is, it's smaller at the top, bigger at the bottom, so the wire is not going to go down to the bottom. I'm going to go to the top, again, make my bail. You'll notice I usually leave about 2 inches extra for that. And now I need to bring the wire to the back. When I bring the wire to the back, I'm going to tuck it under one of the pre-existing wires that are there, bring it up towards the top, and then again, one more time, just kind of twist that bail. If it starts to fall off the edge, you can simply kind of pull it down, manipulate the piece, and pull the wires to the direction that you need them to go. If you feel them moving around a lot, guess what you can do? You can usually just unwrap and figure out how you want to change that up and change up the design. Again, we're using a couple cents worth of wire, so don't be afraid to really manipulate and have fun. Once you have the exact pattern and kind of design that you want to, if you want to increase to a sterling silver or gold filled wire, you can go ahead and do that. Again, have fun with this, working with that round nose, the needle nose, and the cutters. If you want to see a little bit more details and kind of giving inspiration to that whole getting outdoors, you can check out some of the other videos we have on wrapping sea glass and arrowheads, as well as cabochon wrapping too. I wanted to do this Better Beader episode because I do think it's important to kind of embrace nature, and to use a lot of nature in our beading, in my mind, makes it beautiful. These are some simple ways with just a little bit of wire manipulation and some gauge guides to help you to create a beautiful found object piece, which then you can use in your seed beading or your further wire working skills. As with all the Better Beader episodes, make sure that you comment below. Let us know your tips, your techniques, and hopefully different ways that you can also help to make this community full of better beaders. Remember, if you check that little box in the corner there, that little bell, hit that to get regular updates from us here at Potomac Beads. As with everything, have fun, enjoy what you're doing, take a step out in nature, make some jewelry, and enjoy. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and Happy New Year and happy Better Beaders.